Hey, this is Steve from Dinner and a Podcast, and you're listening to the Nerd Podcast Mafia. Entertainment your ears can't refuse.
Welcome to the continued podcast adventures of Superhero Speak.
But I think many of the people that love this character and that love superheroes in general have used these stories as inspiration to say, you know what, I'm going to do something good in the world. I'm going to make a difference like my hero when I was a kid.
That is my fondest memory of it, because when you're doing comic books, you want them to affect people.
Right.
You want people to care. You want to strike emotions. And I knew that Clone Saga was striking a lot of emotions.
Can you imagine Pulp Fiction starring Goofy and Mickey Mouse?
I can totally imagine that.
I'm sure somebody's written that one too.
Quarter pounder with cheese and France, Mickey? What? Royale with cheese, Mickey? Yeah. I can totally.
See?
I would watch the hell out of that movie.
Yes, I gladly sacrifice that my progeny to you, almighty Marvel beast.
But Neil Adams is somewhere going, it's my time.
How do you measure success? Hey everyone, you're listening to Superhero Speak, and I'm your host Dave.
And John.
And JD.
Hey! And here we are in 2018. It's a new year, everyone. Woo.
Yeah, we made it.
Yes, we did.
Contrary to what most people think.
So yes, we're back after our 2-week vacation over the holidays. And how was everyone's holiday? John, JD, did you guys do anything fun?
I coached a lot, so busy.
Yeah.
I spent time making sure that my nephews were all crazy and spoiled so that my sister would have a fun time afterwards.
Yeah, people like you piss me off, man. My siblings did the same thing for my kid. Spoiled him. He's been a maniac ever since.
Well, somebody's got to.
Yes, my older brother's the same way with my kids. It's like, go have some of your own and you'll understand. JD, do you have anything you want to say about your coaching?
We, as of right now, we're top 5 team in the state of Illinois. We just clinched our conference title, so things are moving well. We're on the back third of the season right now, so, next couple weeks things will get interesting. We got 6 weeks left till the end, and, it's getting tight. It's getting tight over here.
Cool, yeah, congrats. I saw when you posted that. Cool.
Very nice.
And, was Santa good to you guys?
If by that you mean was Santa good to my son Andrew? Yes, he was wonderful.
No, Santa doesn't visit you anymore, John?
Well, I do now have listening devices in every one of my rooms in my house. So.
By listening devices, are you speaking of Alexa or just you're spying on yourself?
Oh, well, Alexa too. Yeah, that's true. but, as far as Santa goes, he's on my naughty list, because I'm still single.
Cool.
Do you want to date Santa? Is that what you're trying to say? I'm confused.
See, here's the problem with being off for a couple of weeks. That internal filter that I use to stop saying things that give you guys openings is like degraded. It hasn't been used enough, and now I have to build that up again.
Nah, it's not going to happen. So, I haven't mentioned this on the podcast yet. I believe I've told both you guys on the side outside of the podcast. But since it's related to Christmas, my daughter gave me a sweater for Christmas because she said, you need an old man sweater because you're going to be a grandfather. So, yes, I am officially announcing it on my podcast. My daughter is expecting twins. So, yeah.
Yes. You need a new income source.
Well, they're my grandkids. I'm just spoil them. The rest is up to her and her husband. So, yeah.
Congratulations. May God have mercy on your daughter's soul. I couldn't imagine having 2 babies at once.
No.
Stuff keeps me up late at night in cold sweats.
Yeah, so they're due early July, and things are going well. Just hopefully it stays that way. So yeah, and it's probably my most favorite Christmas present because it's been so cold.
Oh yeah. If our viewers don't know, we've been below 20 at least for the last couple of weeks. We just had an ice storm tonight.
Yes.
So we've been below 0 for the last 2 weeks in Chicago.
It's not a competition.
Well, that's Chicago.
Yeah, it's normally not this cold. Well, it hasn't been this cold here. Let's put it this way, in a long time. And to have a whole week of it straight in a row has just like been really brutal. I know we wouldn't survive in Chicago, would we, JD?
No. My dogs walk outside and their feet are just like ow, 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 ow. Every time they take a step. It's so cold out there. I feel for them.
Yes. So sounds like we all had a good holiday. That's good. Oh, you know what? Speaking of which, we said New Year. Our listeners may have noticed we have a brand new intro on the beginning of the show. That was done for several reasons. Number one, of course, our old intro still included Ben. And he hasn't been on the show for at least 6 months now. And, you know, I was thinking about hiring the same voice guy to just redo the same intro, but change Ben to JD. But then I said, I'm going to do the whole thing over again. And what I did is a lot of podcasts. I did it, you know, for our listeners to know that this JD and John heard it afterwards, and they could have shot it down. And I got the same criticism from everyone. It's a little long, and granted, I left it long for the inaugural episode of the year, but it includes clips from the show because a lot of podcasts I listen to include clips in their intros, and I wanted to include some clips from our past 4 years because, you know, I think we have a lot of good things that have happened on the show and some fun moments.
Most places include good clips. Now, like, our resource of those is kind of low.
You're funny. And you just insulted everyone that we included in the clip, in the intro. So I'm going to shout out who they are and what episodes it's from. The first one, Brett Culp, movie director. He created the film Legends of the Dark Knight and also Look to the Sky. They're both documentaries revolving around fandom for Batman and Superman, respectively. And in his episode, he was basically talking about how people are inspired by these stories to do something better in their lives. And that's all the way back from episode 45 of this podcast. The next clip is Tom DeFalco himself, comic book writer extraordinaire, and it's his take on his favorite memory from the Clone Saga. And that was probably one of my most favorite interviews that we did on the show, and one of my most, like, it made me look at the Clone Saga in a different way after he talked about it. And of course, that's from episode 91. And of course, I had to include a clip from Troy Brownfield, who's been on the show many times. And I think you were on this one. Yeah, you're in the clip, John. Do you remember when he was on and we were talking about how Miramax owned Disney when they made Pulp Fiction? And I made a comment like, oh, could you imagine Pulp Fiction starring Goofy and Donald? And he does an impression of Goofy and Donald in the talking about the Royale with cheese scene. And I just love that, you know, and that's one of those moments that, like, made Troy one of my favorite guests of all time. He's actually been on the show, I think, 4 times now. And that's from episode 69. And the funniest episode, the next clip is the funniest episode. John, you weren't on it.
Of course. Yeah, that goes without saying.
Neither was I, so.
Yeah, so it was episode 103. It was Trevor Duvall, voice actor. At the time, he was promoting Guardians of the Galaxy. He played Rocket Raccoon in that cartoon. And it's one of the few interview episodes where Ben was part of it. And Trevor had us laughing from the moment he got on until the moment we... And I do yourself a favor. If you have not listened to that episode, it's episode 103. Go back and listen to it. It's just a laugh a minute. And then the last one, the last clip from a show is from a recent one, Ben Goldsmith. That was you and me, John. Remember, Ben is the writer of Seance Room from Source Point Press.
We've done a couple of those.
Yeah. And he was just another great guest. He made us, again, just like one of those, we clicked and we were just having fun through the whole thing. And it was just a real short clip. I needed something to fill a couple seconds, so he was included. So thank you to all those guests. Your check's in the mail for being part of our new intro. And again, do yourself a favor and go check out any of those episodes if you haven't done so yet. So, yeah. So, one other piece of business. He's only here at a very limited capacity, but Brian McKevitt, formerly known as Comics, who's been on the show a couple times. He's a friend of mine, is now a part-time contributor on the website. His first article went up over the weekend, and I think you had something to say about it, JD.
I disagree with it immensely, but yeah.
So
that's a good start.
Brian, if you're listening to this, you have to come on and you and JD have to debate about The Last Jedi and the mistakes in the movie. From your opinion.
The term sin is so like harsh for a movie. Like sin, I can't stand that term. Like there's no sinning in movie. You know, it's ridiculous.
You must really hate the Cinema Sins channel on YouTube.
I avoid it.
You shouldn't.
It's John's favorite, I think.
One of my favorites.
One of your favorites, yes.
Someday we should do a show on that. But.
So welcome, Brian. And again, we'll have you on soon so you and JD can debate. I think that'll be fun for me and John to watch.
I think we can do a third. I think we can pull out a third Last Jedi podcast between us.
You think?
We're gonna have to if that's the case. If he comes on.
Yes. Oh, that reminds me. If it's not out already, JD, you and I were guests on a podcast.
That's right.
That they said would be out this week, correct?
I think so. I think that's what it said. We recorded it a couple weeks ago.
It is called Another Mediocre Podcast. And in it, we talked about The Last Jedi, again in great detail. And JD and I again found ourselves defending the movie greatly.
Don't let the title of the show fool you. It was actually a pretty good show, I thought. I thought we did a good job as guests on the other side of the coin. So.
Yes, it's nice when someone else is doing the heavy lifting. Because we're so professional here. So on that note, also another quick shout out here for our friends at the Nerd Podcast Mafia. It's a small little social group that we belong to on Twitter, and we're a group of podcasts, all of nerdy related material. You should check the other podcasts out at nerdpodcastmafia.com. It includes So Wizards, Not Another Nerdy Podcast, the Nerdtastic 4, Open All Powers, Cult 45, and Fans on Patrol. I actually listen to all of them, and they're really good podcasts, so you guys should check them out too. Just wanted to make sure I gave that shout out in 2018. They are a great group to be a part of, and anyone who disagrees with that and doesn't want to be part of the group, well, screw you. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Personal business. That wasn't meant for air.
Ouch.
All right. Well, okay. I haven't told you guys. We're going to just real quick. I will not say the name of the podcast. There was a couple other podcasts that were part of the group. A couple fell off, and then one left.
Were they taken out on a boat?
A podcast left at the end of the year, right? But they didn't say anything to anyone in the group that they were leaving and that they didn't want to be part of it anymore. But on their last episode of the year, they bashed the group and particularly named us and So Wizards in their podcast and said that we were boring and egotistical.
Okay, well, that's
fair. So, I mean, they didn't say anything beforehand. I've never interacted with this podcast in any way other than retweeting them when they asked for retweets. And
they, however, must have listened to us.
Apparently. So yeah, whatever. Good luck to you guys.
Screw them.
Yeah, it was just a weird little thing. Like, I had no idea what was going on, and then the other guys in the group said, "Hey, you really should go listen to their latest episode." So, what are you going to do?
We, however, would never say anything bad about their stupid podcast.
No, never.
Whoever they may be.
Whoever they may be. Yes. So that's, what are you going to do? So, here we are in 2018, guys, but you know what? Because of how things were so busy at the end of the year, we had 2 interviews, and then we did the review of The Last Jedi. We didn't do a look back on 2017, and actually 2017 was a really busy year for this podcast. Wouldn't you agree, John?
Wait, you said 2017?
Yeah.
Man, I'd written up this whole thing for 1917. I get my centuries mixed up sometimes.
What were we doing in 1917 for the podcast?
Oh, I know. There's a review of Great Expectations, and then there was, there was the Cleopatra, one of the greatest movies ever put out.
Mhm.
It was silent film. Coney Island with Fatty Arbuckle and Buster Keaton.
Wow, you could keep going for days, couldn't you?
Well,
Fatty
anyway.
Arbuckle. Whew.
Well, it was also the year that they had the picture of Dorian Gray, which was one of the first horror type movies ever to come out. Of course, coming from Germany. Anyway, yeah,
I like
sure.
the level of commitment you put in this bit, John. Like, it's astounding.
That's why we keep them around. No. 2017, John. You remember how 2017 started out for us?
Crying in a bottle of good vodka.
Yeah,
If I remember right.
and then after that, we got invited to our very first convention where we were guests to the convention.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Finger Lakes Comic Con. Joey Gates and Rusty Gilligan set that up for us. So thank you again to those guys. And it ended up being something more than we thought it was going to be. We ended up hosting like all the panels at the convention. And
Yeah. There was equipment purchased, and there was a lot of setup, and there was me acting like an idiot on stage, which it did bring eyes our way.
yeah, me and Ben shared a room, which probably is what led to something else we're going to talk about. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I have not talked to anyone about us doing it again this year. I don't know. I haven't even talked to you about it.
From last I heard, that the dates were being moved around a lot.
Yes.
Because they were trying to find one that there were other conventions and other things going on in that town.
Right. Yes. And I think he was trying to find something a little later in the year when it wasn't cold and snowy out. So.
Yep.
So Joey, if you're listening, I think John and I and JD, if you'll fly him out, are up to doing it again. Right, JD?
I'll go anywhere if someone pays for me.
Anywhere? Wait a minute.
Yeah, heck yeah. If someone's willing to pay.
What about Afghanistan?
I'll go to Afghan if someone's fronting the bill.
All right.
That'll
Remember
work out,
you just said
works
that.
out really well for random people when they just go hiking in Afghanistan. It's great.
All the time. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And of course, we did our other normal conventions this year, the Greater Philadelphia Comic Con, Wizard World Philly, New York Comic Con. And it was a fulfilling year. We had a lot of great interviews this year, John, and you were actually probably responsible for a good number of these.
I was on fire.
Literally, people ran to put you out, and then you put a microphone in their face.
Yeah, and I only got thrown out twice. Go figure.
Starting off actually with Marina Sirtis. Like, when you got that and came back and told me you talked to her, I was like, what?
Oh, what else are you gonna do, And there was Bruce Boxleitner, too.
Yes. Of course, Peter David. Both of us are big fans of his writing. Joe Rubenstein, famous inker, worked for Marvel for many years. Bob McLeod. That was from the Finger Lakes Comic Con, along with Mark McKenna, of course.
Mara Furlan was another one with, she was sitting right next to Bruce Boxleitner.
Yes.
Because they had both worked on Babylon 5. And Mara Furlan's also the crazy English woman from Lost, for those people who don't follow sci-fi. And if you don't follow sci-fi, why are you listening to us? But go ahead.
We had two great voice actors this year, Steve Plum and Lex Lang. And we had this independent creator came on. His name was JD something or other.
Man, I really brought the quality of this thing down this year. Jeez.
Is that where the boring came from? I don't know.
Probably.
Or is that the egotism? I get,
It might have been the egotism.
That too.
And of course, the always non-controversial Ethan Van Sciver was on.
Yeah.
He was fine.
He was fine. Yeah, there was nothing there was nothing controversial about that. Maybe that's why we were boring, because we had Ethan Van Sciver on, and no fires started, and no one was screaming at each other. Maybe we undersold that.
Well,
all right, next time, Ethan, if you're listening, we want you to come back on so we can argue politics.
Well, Dave did pay me to shut up during that interview, so nothing happened.
You got paid?
John, I told you, ixnay. But of course, the sad thing that happened this year, about halfway through the year, is Ben took us aside and said that he wanted to leave the podcast. And he quietly bowed out. And
When
again,
a young man reaches a certain age, he decides he needs to grow up.
and again, to ultimately stress this, like, there was no ill will at all when he left. He just didn't want to do the show anymore. I mean, even JD can attest. He's still in our Slack and talks to us all the time. So it's not like he hates us or anything. He just didn't want to do the podcast anymore. So
No matter how many times we ban him from the channel, he still talks to us.
yeah, well, he helped you set it up, so he has all the passwords.
I knew there was a problem with that.
So then we went on our hunt for a co-host, and a former guest reached out to us and said he'd like to do it, and he has been on the show ever since.
Yay.
So excited. But we also got Matt. That Room joined us as well. He did a couple episodes, and then he went to me on the side and said, I'm not comfortable with doing the podcast, but I'd love to write for the website. He has written quite a few reviews for us this year, and we thank him for that. And of course, we hope he continues doing it throughout the 2018.
Yeah, he's a writing machine.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the best. I think he's one of the best, like, unheralded, like, reviewers and comics on the internet right now. Like, that, I'm not just saying Brandon. I really like his stuff. Like, he really, he really writes. There's great insight. Like, he's not one of those guys who review things. A lot of times people review things like, well, here's what I want there. Here's what I would have done with it. Matt doesn't. Matt talks
Right.
about the work, and that's why I really like reading his reviews. And I think he's got a great future in doing this stuff.
And you know what? Like, there's also something I really admire about Matt that I haven't said before. And if you're listening to this, Matt, and if I embarrass you, I apologize. But he has religious convictions, you know, and he won't review something he doesn't agree with, you know, in that sense. And I know it's, you know, some people might say, oh, well, he should challenge himself with that. But if you have a belief that you don't want to read something like that, you know, something that depicts scantily clad women or sexual content or drug use, then, you know, you have a belief system. He sticks to that, you know, and I actually really admire that about him.
Second, agreed.
And but he still finds a lot of great books to review. And again, yeah, you're right. He does an awesome job. So yes, we're all saying we love you, Matt. Keep up the good work. All right. Now the mushy stuff's out of the way. What, John?
No, I was just wondering what else do we got? What else did we do? I'm having a hard time remembering now. It's like once it turns to 2018, I kind of clear the slate.
Well, we reviewed a lot of movies in 2017.
Oh God, yeah.
There were so many movies to review. Like last year was crazy with how many superhero related films came.
This is the golden age of superhero movies. It literally is. We are living in it right now.
Yeah. So actually, we'll start out with the Twitter poll. I did 4 Twitter polls over the weekend. Starting with, of course, the, let me see if I can find them. I did not have them ready to go. I apologize for that. I'm going back through my Slack where I have them posted.
Forward, this is the year that we will do more prep before we do a podcast.
You and your prep.
No, who are you talking to? I'm the one who doesn't do.
All right, so we started out with what was your favorite Marvel movie of 2017, right? The choices being Logan, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Thor Ragnarok. Who do you think won out of those 4, guys? If you haven't already looked at the results.
I haven't looked at the results, so I'm going to take a guess here. I'm going to say Logan.
Okay, John, what do you think?
Logan would require a certain type of audience, basically people like me, to name that as a favorite. I'm going to go with Spider-Man Homecoming.
Well, you know what, John? You have more in common with our audience than you think. Logan.
That's not a good sign.
Logan won with 41%. These polls got a really good number of responses. Like sometimes we get 60 or 80. These all got over 100 responses. Logan was at 41%. Spider-Man and Thor tied for second place at 22%. And Guardians Volume 2 got 15. Which I'm shocked, because I actually really enjoyed Guardians, but, you know.
That's the one I voted for. That was my favorite of the 4 movies this year.
All right.
Well, you also, keep in mind though, all 4 of those movies were excellent.
Yep.
Like, it wasn't like, you know, a choice between 1 or 2 mildly good ones with half Rotten Tomatoes and then 2 Razzie Award winners. It was like, they were all really up there in quality. I mean, Spider-Man made a comeback. Thor Ragnarok was the Thor we should have gotten in the beginning. They're all good.
So just real quick, I also want to point out, Gaming Princess Luna had responded to the poll saying, "Can I vote for Deadpool?" And I, of course, had to remind her that was, from 2016. And,
that doesn't matter. It's Deadpool.
And the Cult 45 podcast, again, another member of the Nerd Podcast Mafia, they said that they were tough choices this year. And then, of course, let's move on to DC. Of course, DC had 3 movies out this year. Yeah, some people forget about the first one.
Wasn't as tough.
Lego Batman movie, of course, Wonder Woman, and Justice League. So who?
Well, I know which one got the worst.
Which one do you think won, John?
I'm going to go with Wonder Woman because it's either Wonder Woman or Batman Lego. Those are the only two.
And JD?
Having not seen Batman Lego, I'll go with Wonder Woman.
Yes, overwhelming. With over 200 votes on this one, Wonder Woman won with 63%. Lego Batman got 23%, and Justice League got 14%.
That's about right. You hear that? You hear that, Warner Brothers? That the whole point, the whole reason that she won is because of that No Man's Land scene, the one you wanted to take out of the movie.
Well, I'm sure now they have another executive in charge. Things will be fine
now. So Cult 45's response to this was, I choose Lego Batman, give me Lego Justice League.
They've already done a few of those.
Tim Berger from the Dork of All Trades podcast, who are a former member of the Nerd Podcast Mafia, but they actually ended their show. They didn't leave, but they have ended their podcast. He said they were tough questions. Yikes, the podcast said, I voted for Wonder Woman, but let's all remember that Gal Gadot is trash. Ooh.
What?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? My God, no.
The internet is such a wonderful place.
Everybody was worried about her acting, and then walking out of that movie, everybody agreed she made it happen.
Dinner and a Podcast, I forgot. They are like one of the newest members of the Mafia. I know it's crazy, but I like Justice League best. Love
that
Steve from Dinner and a Podcast. I forgot about those guys, and I love their show. I listen to it every week.
Well, not anymore.
Hey, I like Justice League too. It wasn't my favorite, but I liked it as well.
I think that sounds like a feud.
All right, so then we moved on to the non-Marvel DC comic book movies of 2017. And there were only 3, and they were Kingsman: The Golden Circle, Atomic Blonde, and for Valerian, The City of a Thousand Planets.
Valerian. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Since you laughed at the question, John, who do you think won that?
What are the choices again? Because that's a hard one.
Kingsman: The Golden Circle, Atomic Blonde, and Valerian, City of a Thousand Planets.
Okay, again, if you're me, if you're in my demographic, probably Atomic Blonde. Otherwise, Kingsman. I don't see Valerian. I really don't.
How about you, JD?
I didn't see any of them, so I'll take a guess and say Kingsman.
Well, I only saw Kingsman, and that's who won. With a 44%, Atomic Blonde at 35%, and Valerian at 21%. I haven't seen Valerian. I have heard it's a hot mess.
Looks like it.
If you thought Justice League was disjointed and Superman v Batman was, like just jump cut it all over the place, Valerian it was miscast. It was just, oh God. No. If it ever comes on, if it's ever on like HBO or something, and you can get it for free, watch it, while you're like eating or, playing with your kids or something. Just leave it on in the background. That's about what it's good for.
That's a Luc Besson movie, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Just wonder if he's lost his fastball a little bit. Last couple of things he's done I haven't been a huge fan of.
So, some of the viewer responses, Marcellus Reagans from So Wizard said, out of the selection, Atomic Blonde easily has the most going for it. Didn't quite stick the landing for me, but visually, oh my goodness. That's a good response. I like that. Noodle Rama, her response, I only saw Valerian and I didn't really like it. Tim again, Atomic Blonde put me to sleep. Kingsman and Golden Circle is great, and Dinner and a Podcast, Atomic Blonde is in a different league as the other two. If it loses, then not enough people have seen it. Interesting.
Yeah. See, that's very possible because, the audience that's going to go see Atomic Blonde is not the same as the ones that are going to see Valerian, and is not the same as the ones that are going to see Kingsman.
Right.
There might be some overlap with Atomic Blonde and Kingsman, but not much.
True.
They're very different demographics.
Yes, and I think the final poll can kind of show that. So I took the 3 winners and I put them in a poll to say, out of these 3, which is the best? Because then that determines the best comic book movie of 2017, right? The audience speaks.
Oh yeah, sure, right. Yeah.
So out of Logan, Wonder Woman, and Kingsman, what was the best one of 2017?
Ghost in the Shell, right? I'm sorry. What were the selections again?
Logan, Wonder Woman, or Kingsman?
Wonder Woman.
JD, what do you think?
This was a tough one for me. I stared at this one for a while because I thought Logan was the better film, but I liked Wonder Woman more. So I voted for Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Well, to tell you guys, they were tied for the majority of the time this poll was up. At like 45% for both. And at the end, Logan pulled ahead. So it was 48% for Logan, 44% for Wonder Woman, and then 8% for Kingsman. And, yeah, it was just, I think it is a tough choice, but, so yeah, that was good. So we all know then Logan was the best comic book movie of 2017. It's a done decision, right? We don't have to talk about it anymore.
Well, we can talk about Wonder Woman because, Wonder Woman, another movie will be coming out, hopefully.
So what was your favorite movie? And it doesn't even have to be a comic book movie of 2017. We'll start with JD.
That was a tough one. I think my favorite movie of the year probably is Last Jedi because, not just because it's a good movie on its own, but because it carries the Star Wars weight with it, and anything that can kind of carry that series into a positive space is always going to hold a special place for me. I really like Logan a lot. It's bleak and it's effective. It's a very, very good movie. Mm-hmm. But, and Wonder Woman, same thing, as I really liked Wonder Woman a lot. But I think at the end of the day, Star Wars just won out for me.
Okay. It's a fair answer. How about you, John?
I can't go with the Star Wars movie. I mean, it was good. And, I can't wait for them to come out with more. Well, not the Solo one, but the rest, I can't wait. But, if you want to talk for me, if you want to go, expand, if I say Alien Covenant, everybody's going to kill me, so we won't add that one. But you did have John Wick Chapter 2.
Yeah,
that was great. That was a great movie.
You can't leave that one out. I did like Kong Skull Island. And otherwise, I'd say Wonder Woman.
That Kong movie got kind of lost in the summer shuffle, didn't it? Because it seemed to kind of come and go.
Yeah,
it did. And of course, they're setting up for the giant monster universe thing, which that I think that movie successfully set up for a franchise. I think it was really, really good enough that everybody's going to want to see the next one. Unlike, say, The Mummy setting up the Dark Universe, where I think they're going to have to reboot it for a third time just to see if they can get anything going.
That Dark Universe is a pipe dream. I don't think it's ever really going to happen.
No,
there's not enough people around today that want it, There are a few handful of movie buffs that love those movies, but it's not like it doesn't have an audience that Star Wars would have, or even the comic book movie,
And it could. I mean, a couple of years ago we had I, Frankenstein, which was okay. It was a popcorn movie, but the way they're trying to boot this Dark Universe. I mean, you've got several very identifiable monsters, the vampires, werewolves. Everybody's sick of vampires. Nobody wants to see any more zombies. Zombies are everywhere already. Mm-hmm. So, that market's saturated. Werewolves, we just got finished with the Underworld quadrilogy or whatever, and nobody really wants it. There doesn't seem to be a market for that. And then they come up with The Mummy, and what we're left with is Tom Cruise as some kind of mummy god type thing that nobody really knows. And, the ending was completely like confusing. So I really don't think, nobody's going to really want to see the rest of it.
Right.
Besides, nobody really wants to see Tom Cruise. It's like, yes, I'm an action guy who's 57.
The thing that surprised me with The Mummy was the loose tie into the Brendan Fraser films. And it was kind of like, wait a minute, why didn't they just continue those movies,
Exactly. They could have had The Son.
Right.
And they did so well with those movies because those movies, people got invested in them because the movies were about family. It was a monster movie, but it was a family dealing with monsters. And it had real mummies, not this weird mummy creature, death creature type thing. So, and anything to get Rachel Weisz back into if they could get her back, that would be awesome.
So when I was thinking about my favorite Money 17, it was tough. I'm going to get flack for this, but I liked Logan, but I didn't love it, it was just kind of like, it was finally the Wolverine we wanted to see from the beginning in his last movie, really. And, but again, it was like an ending story. It was just like, Star Wars, I liked a lot, of course, we've talked about it to death. And Homecoming, it was kind of like, yay, Marvel's finally doing a Spider-Man movie. And I should be super pumped and excited. This should be my absolute favorite movie. I wasn't, I was kind of disappointed in Homecoming. And not because it wasn't a great movie, just because to me, there wasn't anything in Homecoming that we hadn't seen before, in the previous Spider-Man movie.
But it was still better than last, right?
I mean, that's like saying it was better than a wet fart.
Ooh, granted. Fair enough.
So, and, there was a little movie that you and I saw at the beginning of the year, John, that we haven't really talked about either, which was Power Rangers.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. Which actually was a hell of a lot better than we thought it would be.
But I honestly think, and I've thought about it, I think I liked Wonder Woman the best. Its flaws aside, especially the ending sequence, of the movie. It was the movie that, again, finally we got Wonder Woman on the big screen, and aside from the flaws, she was done right. The No Man's Land scene, and, it was an origin movie, but it didn't feel like all the other origin movies we've seen. It was a good movie. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with one.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then I'll second it with Power Rangers. That's my backup.
I'm blown away that you guys like the Power Rangers. That astounds me.
It was okay. It was okay, which was much better than anybody thought it was going to be.
It was the thing where John and I went into it we got invited. It was like a press thing we were invited to. The only one we were invited to, by the way, movie companies like, look, we want to cover your movies. Start sending us more tickets.
Cheap plug.
Yeah.
But, I don't think we went in with any major expectations because we're not in that Power Rangers age range. My son went with us and he was a big Power Rangers fan, when he was younger, and he enjoyed the movie. And so for me, that raised my enjoyment of it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, if to me, I saw they reached their target audience,
It's funny you say that because, I know I missed the Power Rangers thing kind of just barely. I was in high school when Power Rangers got big, so I did miss it too. But I knew some kids or some guys that are younger than me that I'm friends with that all kind of said, they missed the boat on it. So I kind of wrote that movie off and I never even thought about seeing it.
Huh.
The trailers and stuff look kind of cool, but I just kind of, when I talked to friends of mine that did dig Power Rangers, they were like, don't waste your time. So I didn't think about it. I'm just maybe I'll give it a second chance then.
Yeah.
Well,
frankly.
It's good. I'm not saying Oscar winner here.
Right.
Well, yeah.
But it's Power Rangers. But given what the show was, it was a little bit more serious and a little bit better made and written than you would have thought it would have.
Right. It was somebody said, how can we take all the elements from the original show and treat them a little more seriously and make them seem slightly more believable?
Now, the only problem with the movie is make sure there's this Krispy Kreme donuts shop near the movie theater when you get out.
We'll say no more. You just have to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, there's Superman levels of product placement, or Man of Steel levels, and then there's this. I mean, it's done so over the top that it actually becomes funny.
Right. So
we're watching. It's funny you mentioned we're watching Runaways right now on Hulu, and that's sponsored by Lyft. And my wife is now doing a running count of how many times they do a Lyft plug within the context of the show, because it is so egregious.
Yes.
Oh, gotta love it.
So speaking of TV shows, what was our favorite TV shows of 2017? You know, obviously Netflix and Hulu included in those as well. JD, you can start since you were just talking about Runaways.
Runaways, I'm not done with it yet, so I don't want to pass a final judgment on it.
Okay.
Very different than the comic in some spots, so I'm gonna hold back on that. My favorite show of the year, and again, I'm in a weird spot right now where I work every night, basically. Like
Right.
with our living situation, like I come home and I put Andy to bed, or I hang out with my wife a little bit, and then I go to work. So my TV watching has dramatically plummeted this year. But the show that I liked the most, that I looked the most forward to, that I was the most satisfied with, was actually Longmire, the final season.
Really?
What
I
is
love
that?
show, man. Longmire. It's this cop. It's a cop show, takes place in Wyoming. And, he's just a sheriff, and it was on A&E for 2 seasons. And despite being A&E's highest rated show, they canceled it because the demographic just skewed too old, because it's pretty much me and a bunch of old people that watch it. And, Netflix resurrected it the last 2 or 3 seasons. And they've been really good, man. It's a really good show. So that's and they finished it up. This was the final season. And I couldn't say enough good things. Like, I was excited to watch every episode, and I didn't feel any of it dragged. And, you know, it deals with a lot of like Native American mythology stuff to go along with the crime of the week type of thing. It's an interesting spin in a procedural show that has just always clicked. So if you like Scalped, it's like the Jason Aaron comic. It's kind of like a watered down, you know, semi-palpable version of Scalped for a TV show. It's fun. So that was my favorite.
How about you, John?
Oh, this is going to be a hard one. I mean, we had Iron Fist, so I can't go there. I like The Punisher, but I've seen so many TV shows lately that I don't. You know what? I have to say something like I'm going to go really off script here. Like, I don't know if anybody's seen The Librarians.
I have not seen the last couple.
Yeah, The Librarians was excellent. Doctor Who has been excellent, and I'm sorry, I still like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't see why everybody's so upset about it. I think they did a really good job with it last season with the LMDs, and then the Darkhold, and of course, Ghost Rider. What else was there? I don't know. My favorite though? I don't know if I can give you a favorite. It's like, again, if you wanted a favorite, I'd have to, you know what? I'll tell you what. The best thing that nobody's really talked about was the 4-episode crossover of all the CW series, the DC series.
That was actually really well done this year.
It was so well done, and the fight scenes with all of the heroes and villains was amazing. They would have only been, if they had a movie budget, they would have only been able to do only a little bit better than they actually did. I mean, we had buildings collapsing and Supergirl throwing her evil twin around, and the only thing is, I think they missed the boat because the evil twins did not all have goatees. How are you supposed to tell which Supergirl is bad if one of them doesn't have a goatee?
Oh God, that's why they wore black.
Yeah, but we're not racist.
Oh, I really enjoyed the 4-part crossover. I don't know if you watched it, JD.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Oh, it was amazing. It was really.
Then I don't want to give anything too much away, but
the end was sad.
The end is sad. It falls apart a little bit towards the end when you find out the motivation behind why they invaded, Earth Prime or Earth 1 in the first place. It was kind of like, But other than that, it was really well done.
Well, it's better than the last couple of seasons. Like every season, they do a big crossover.
Yes, it was the
with
best
all the
crossover
heroes.
yet.
Yeah, because the one with the Dominaires really disappointed me. This one did not. And hey, I'm the podcast curmudgeon. So if I'm saying it didn't disappoint me, then it had to have been pretty good.
Yeah. I'm shocked neither one of you mentioned the Inhumans.
Look, neither one of us mentioned Gotham either.
Oh, yeah.
My wife finally watched it, and she's like, "Oh, it's not that bad." And I think it took everything I had not to go, "What are you thinking?" Oh, okay, maybe I'll watch it sometime. You know, being married, you got to pick and choose your battles.
Yes.
So I just kind of let her have that one.
Man, my favorite TV show of 2017. It is a toss up, man. Fuller House and no. I couldn't even actually. It's funny. My wife and I did watch like the first season of Fuller House because we grew up watching Full House in the 90s, and then we kind of half watched the second season. The third one just came out, and we after the first episode, we can't watch this anymore. It's so bad.
You know what you need to do? Go onto YouTube, look up Cinema Snob, and he does a binge watch of those and does little reviews after each episode. And It's hysterical.
Actually, it's funny because Westworld season 2 comes out this year.
Yeah.
So, that would have been my number one. I am going to go with my favorite show, of course, be season 3 of Rick and Morty. And if you're not watching Rick and Morty, what is wrong with you?
I just started.
Oh, what episode you on?
I have no idea. After you watch an episode, your brain is so scrambled that it's amazing you can remember your own name.
Did you get to the Love Potion episode yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
That is the episode that you will really get what the show is about when you get to that episode. That's all I'm saying. I guess you don't watch it at all, JD.
No, I haven't seen it. I've heard a lot of good things, but again, I'm afraid to start new TV shows because it's a time thing, man. I can't get sucked into the.
But the thing with Rick and Morty is they're half-hour episodes, and there's only like the first 2 seasons, I believe, are 13 episodes, and this season was only 10. So I mean, you could knock the whole thing out in like an afternoon. Just saying, just putting that out there.
No, it's on the list of things that I need.
Okay.
That is definitely one you should watch while your kids are in there.
No. No. It is a cartoon, but it's not for kids.
Well, we're at the age too where you never know what he's going to say. He's just learning how to talk, and the random words he does spout out sometimes. It's like I got to even listen, be careful on some of the podcasts I listen to with him in the car now, because it's that's another reason I kind of got to curb some things, because you know how it is. You got a little 2-year-old voice recorder.
My mother-in-law always tells the story about how my brother-in-law, my oldest brother-in-law, my wife's oldest brother, like one of the first words he learned was truck. But because, they were, my wife's aunt and uncle have a farm and
I see where this is going.
My father-in-law drove a truck for them. So, but again, he had a hard time saying the word all the time.
Oh, never mind. Abort.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So careful with those words.
Yeah, my wife will murder me if anything like that happens. So I can't die yet.
No, not yet. You got a little while to go.
So here's one other thing that came out in 2017 that I don't know that anybody really watched or anybody's really talked about. Bright.
Oh yeah, I did watch that.
Technically, that 2017 release. So
how is that? My brother just talked to me about it yesterday. He really, really liked it. And it got so savagely beat up that I'm like, I don't know what to...
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, all of the critics hate it with passion, and then you look at the viewer score, and the viewer score is in the 80s, I think. I mean, it is. I liked it. I really did.
So the thing you have to look at with Bright is, it feels like it's the first chapter in what could be a long-going saga. So there's a lot of kind of world building that goes on, and the story around it is fairly simple.
Right, but it now is going to be a saga because they've greenlit Bright 2.
Okay. So that's, I think, why a lot of people were disappointed with it because it's essentially becomes a chase movie, you know? It's a little slow in the beginning, and then it's like a chase movie for the majority of the movie, and then the climax of the movie, something happens that's kind of, I mean, not to give away anything, but you kind of see it coming. You know, I said it to my wife, 15 minutes into the movie, like, here's what's going to happen. But then, like, nothing really happens after the climax, but again, because afterwards I'm like, I want to see more because I feel like they just set up a really cool world.
Well, and it's set up that, I mean, okay, it's not really a spoiler, but it turns out that Will Smith is a Bright.
Well, that's what I was saying. That's the big thing. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I thought the climax was okay, but here's the thing. So the critic score is 28%, and then the audience score is 87%. So this is one of those ones where, okay, yeah, it may be formulaic. It may like hit the 4 quadrants, but it hit them really well, and it's got Will Smith. You really can't lose with Will Smith.
I mean, you have to understand, I'm obligated to watch it because I'm from Philadelphia, and there is actually a law in the city that you have to watch anything Will Smith is in. But again, I did enjoy it. By the end of it, I was like, it was a little slow, but I enjoyed what they set up, and I can see where they're going with. And it's Netflix, like, I don't know how they judge if something's successful or not, but, they can easily keep going with it. There's nothing like, it's not like they're selling tickets, and it's not like they're going to lose subscribers over it. I guess it's just if no one watches it is where it comes in,
Yeah.
It is weird because we don't know any of their metrics for anything or what's considered a success on Netflix. And
right.
I just want, like, they've been greenlighting so much stuff. Like, they just greenlit the Dark Sabrina shit. So I wonder, like, because all these streaming services are greenlighting so much stuff and spending so much money. I wonder where the limit is. Like, I wonder how long that's going to go on. I don't know. Like, it's hard to judge because we literally don't know anything about what their business is doing, like how successful things really are. It's interesting.
So, yeah. So what would be, and it doesn't have to be pop culture or nerd related, what would you say was your least favorite Money 17?
Are we making jokes or are we being for real?
Whatever you want to say, JD, it's your floor. Go ahead. The podcast is yours. What?
Charlottesville was far and away my least one, 2017.
Okay. So you were
like, I didn't know, are we? Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure what to say. It was the first one that popped in my head, though.
I know, we're so political on this podcast all the time, too.
The 3-second thing I just said. That was a terrible moment. As far as, like, what was goofy that upset me, I don't know. I guess it's the lost potential in Justice League. I thought it could have been so much more, but it isn't. And it's not bad. Like, I don't hate it. Some people vehemently hate it. It was just kind of there for me. And, I really love the DC universe so much. And it disappoints me looking at what could have been and what isn't,
Right. Okay. How about you, John?
I guess when I changed my name to Jane somehow, that'd be one of them. The Justice League was kind of a disappointment. But then again, I am the DC apologist for the podcast, so it does keep me in a job. Otherwise, I don't really have an answer. I mean, there's I'm trying not to go political here because there's so much bad news.
Well, JD already broke the bubble, so.
I know.
I broke the seal, sorry.
So you can just pick one moment.
I don't know. Is it the president threatening nuclear war against another nuclear power, or is it Disney buying? Who they buy?
Fox.
20th Century Fox.
Yeah, 20th Century Fox. I'm not sure which one of those is worse. Nuclear war.
I love how they're on the same level with you. a little inkling into the working of John O'Grady's mind.
Yeah, working. We'll use that word, sure. But yeah, if I put all politics aside, I'll go with JD. I'm going to piggyback off of him because I can't really think of much worse in our field. So the Justice League thing, and I guess I was disappointed with The Mummy too, and
yeah,
I don't know.
I think you got a good point though with the merge with the 20th Century Fox Disney thing. Like I know a lot in our world super fired up because Marvel's going to get the X-Men back, but I think that it's way worse. You know, like as a creator, like having less options and less places to work isn't a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, I agree. I think that's bad.
Oh, I've got it. I've got the thing that scares me, that literally scares me the most right now is, the loss of net neutrality.
Fair enough.
Because that is going to affect everything. That's going to affect comic bookdom. It's going to affect movie streaming. It's going to affect where we can get our movies now. Because if you're on Verizon and they don't have an agreement with Netflix, you're not going to be able to watch Netflix at full stream. If vice versa, if Disney's coming out with their own system now, their own site for streaming, which means that, you know, AT&T will have to have an agreement with them, and it's just going to be a freaking mess if it actually finally goes through, which it's being fought on every level at this point. But yeah, losing net neutrality, that's what pisses me off the most.
So off of what you just said, the Disney merger, I think I mentioned this when we first talked about the story on the website, on the podcast, that it's estimated they will own 40%, 38 or 40% of all entertainment after this.
That's horrifying.
Still less than 50. So,
so if they get like 51%, does that mean they own controlling interest and automatically control everything else?
Yes. They control you after that.
I think like Comcast is going to have something to say about that, and so will. Actually, that's it. I can't think of anybody else big enough at this point.
Amazon.
Oh, yeah. They're still. I don't know. Netflix, but then the problem is that most of the properties that they've done well with were owned by Disney. So
on the net neutrality thing, I will just point out that you do work for the enemy, John, in that situation.
Okay, yeah. Full disclosure. I guess we, if we're going to consider ourselves real news in some fashion or another, I do work for the 800-pound gorilla.
I'm always wondering, like when you look back on your life, right? Like, and you find out when you end up working at places like that. Like, I was always a big person about cleaning up the environment and everything, and I work for an oil refinery, so like. And you're all about fair use and open internet, and you work for Comcast. I mean, it's just we're just not doing it right, John.
Well, and JD is actually living the dream. So
yes,
you get a paycheck and you have to live, and these companies now are so big that you can work your entire life in one of them and never see the parts that are the bad parts that you're actually fighting against. So
it's terrifying.
It is.
My least favorite moment of 2017, since you all picked something political. I think the thing that bothered me the most in 2017, in fact, it bothered me so much we actually almost dedicated a whole episode. I think we did the whole episode on it. Is that in 2017? The Me Too movement even had to be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like as a species, as a society, we haven't moved past that yet. So, yeah.
Let me save you here. It's the worst part isn't that it happened, it's that it had to happen.
Right, that's what I was saying. Not that it happened, that it had to happen. But yes, so.
Just making sure.
All right. So, if we're going, I guess if we're going in our realm, I am scared. It's funny because it didn't bother me when Disney bought Marvel. It bothered me a little bit, but then the movies were great. It didn't bother me when they bought Star Wars because I still like what they're producing. But now it's like, they own a huge chunk of everything that's going on. We can't have mouse ears on everything.
Well, it's true. When you look at Star Wars was $4 billion, Marvel was like $2 billion. And 20th Century Fox deal was like, I forget, it was like $50 billion. It was like an insane amount of money.
Yeah.
Like, it's scary. It really is scary how much of like the entertainment world they now control. Like, it's weird.
How much is that studio in the window? The one with the characters I want to own.
Yeah. Well, this is really going to be an interesting year because of if you take the nexus of those two things, net neutrality and the mega mergers, really, it's going to be a scary, interesting time to see how things shake out and what our ability to watch what we want to is going to fall out at the end of the year. What it's going to look like.
Let me just end that with all of us here at Superhero Speak. Say hell to the mouse, our mighty leader.
And if you don't know why we say that, go watch the South Park episode with the Jonas Brothers and the mouse, because that'll explain everything.
Yes. Of course, one thing I did want to do, and this episode is going a little long, but I don't care.
You never did before.
I just wanted to, I listened to a lot of podcasts in the last couple of weeks, and they all did their 2017 wrap-up episodes, but no one did an in-memory section. And a lot of people did pass away in 2017. Maybe not as many big celebrities as in 2016, but enough. And I just thought we could take a moment and do an in-memory for them. Of course, starting with John Hurt. Of course, he was in Alien, and then he reprised his alien role in Spaceballs. And everyone, though, here that listens to this podcast probably knows him as the War Doctor from Doctor Who. And then, of course, there was Richard Hatch from Battlestar Galactica. Michael Parks, I included him on the list. He was in Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, but I included him because he was in Red State and Tusk, both Kevin Smith movies.
Tusk, really interesting.
Did you see Tusk?
No, I've read several synopses of it. But I've heard it's really interesting, and it sounded interesting, and read interesting. And I really want to see it. I just keep missing it. Okay.
We also lost Bill Paxton from, of course, The Terminator. Also,
Game Over, man.
Yep. Alien. No, that was Terminator. That wasn't Terminator. It was Aliens, where he said "Game Over, man." And of course, he was in not last season, the before of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We lost a James Bond this year of Roger Moore. We lost everyone's first Batman, Adam West, this past year. And then we lost quite a few comic book creators, and a couple of these are actually pretty close to home for this podcast. Len Wein, writer, co-creator of Swamp Thing, Nightcrawler and Storm. Rich Buckler, who actually was a friend of mine. He was an artist on the Fantastic Four for years, and he was the creator of Deathlock at Marvel Comics. Tommy Castillo, another friend of mine, artist on Detective Comics for many years. He actually passed away at 1, I believe. It was liver failure.
Ew.
Jay Lynch, he was an artist. He was one of the key figures in the underground comics movement in the 60s. And he was also a cartoonist who was on a little-known strip for many years of Bazooka Joe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sam Glasman, he was an artist on Hercules for Charlton Comics. Dick Lotcher, who was a cartoonist to Dick Tracy for many years. And then finally, Stan Weston passed away. And I didn't know who this man was until I watched a documentary that's currently on Netflix called The Toys That Made Us. And he was the creator of G.I. Joe. And then, later on was one of the creators of Thundercats. And the funny thing about Stanley was he created G.I. Joe, and he wanted to sell it to I want to say Hasbro. Yeah,
Hasbro.
Hasbro. He was selling the idea to Hasbro, and they offered him either $50,000 and a percentage of the sales, or $100,000 for the entire idea. Well, he didn't think he was going to make any money off of it, so he took the $100,000 and completely sold the idea to Hasbro. So he had no rights to it after that. But it's funny because in the documentary, they did talk to him shortly before he passed away, and he said that he really wasn't bitter about it, just as long as people knew that he was the one who created it. That's all he cared about. And Hasbro was good at making sure he had credit. So, yeah. Thought it was an interesting story. And that's just a little plug. If anyone hasn't watched it yet, it's supposedly going to be 8 parts. 4 parts are currently up on Netflix. It's called The Toys That Made Us, and it's a really cool documentary. The first part is on Star Wars toys.
I did see. My wife and I got hooked into it because my brother said, "Hey, you got to watch this miniseries."
Yeah.
So it was only 4 parts. I was like, "Oh, that's easy." And I think we watched it like on a Sunday afternoon, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think it's interesting because that same offer the guy had a similar deal. The guy who invented Barbie took the royalty and became a multi-millionaire.
Oh yes.
Who later squandered it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a cool story too.
It's cool. Like those are really good miniseries. Like the first part is Star Wars, the second part is Barbie, the third part is He-Man, and the fourth is G.I. Joe.
The best part of the whole thing was in the first one when they were talking about the Star Wars toys, and they decided to not. Obviously, at that point, you had Barbie and the full-size G.I. Joes that were, what were they, 6-inch figures, I guess. Yeah. And to save money, Kenner said they were going to make the toys smaller, and the head of Kenner put out his thumb and finger and said, "All right, make them this tall." And they literally got a ruler and measured, and it was 3 3/4, and that's where the action figure size came from. And then all the action figures after that were 3 3/4. It's just like, just because he put his hand out, like, I want them this size. Yeah, amazing.
So, I'm going to add another name to this list because, me from the animation side. Mm-hmm. 2017 is the year we lost Hiromi Tsuru, who did the voice of Bulma in the Dragon Ball series since 1986. All the way through to Dragon Ball Super, which is still in production now.
Oh, wow.
So, So, and she was in some very big animes like Ranma and a Half and Trigun.
Oh, cool.
But she's known as the voice of Bulma. So she's going to be missed a lot.
All right. There we go. So now let's look forward. Let's end the sad note and move on to what we're looking forward to in 2018.
The end of this episode. No.
The end of this episode. Well, actually, you know what? I didn't ask you guys. It's 2018. It's a new year. Did you guys make any New Year's resolutions?
I didn't make any resolutions, but I have plans for 2018.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I got 2 novels that are going to launch hopefully by the end of the month. I'm just jumping through the hoops right now to get them out. One of them is going to be for free. The other one's going to be available on Amazon. So, that's my big plan. And then, I got to finish the Red Sunrise book. It's being drawn. So I've got some, it's going to be 2017 was my educational year. This is the year that I'm really going to hit the ground with some stuff.
I have a plan, but it involves a hose and a funnel. How about you, John?
My plan is nowhere near your plan, that's for sure. No, this is the year I'm going to finish the novel that I'm working. So.
Good for you.
Competing authors right here on Superhero Speak. Who will come out a champion? Oh, wait.
There's no such thing as competing authors.
Oh.
Yeah. Unless you steal my idea. Then.
To enter the ring of death, only one can come out. No, I actually, I don't really have, I do have a resolution. And it's funny because earlier in this podcast, you could say I already broke it. It's just, it's one of those things where, I'm trying to learn to not let small things bother me and let things go more and more, so I want to try to, like the thing with the other podcast, like, yeah, I complained about it, but, I really should have just been like, yeah, whatever, moved on. That's my, resolution for 2018. We'll see how long that lasts.
How the heck am I supposed to, make this interesting by needling you if you do that?
Well, that's the point. We're seeing if I can last.
Yeah, you won't last 10 minutes if I really turn it on. Okay.
So on that note, guys, we got a lot of movies coming out this year. If 2017 had a lot of great movies, I think 2018's got twice as many. As any, I sent you guys a list. I don't know if you have it in front of you, of the ones that I'm probably most excited about. Is there anything that's coming out you're really excited about?
I think that I'm looking at this, man, it is an intense list. The one I'm really looking forward to Black Panther. Infinity War, because the scale is so big, is probably the one that I've got my most interest in. I don't know, man. I think Venom is my pick to be the biggest train wreck of the year.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking that too. Like, I want to see Venom just because I know it's going to be bad, and I want to see how bad it is.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, I don't know how you could do. I don't know. I guess I'm going to say this because we got to cover it.
Right, but how can you do Venom separate from Spider-Man? It just doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't work.
It's the same. It's the same with Solo. I mean, it's like you're taking. Basically, it's like, hey, we can make money off of this, and they're just making movies. They're saying, here's a character, make a movie about it. They're greenlighting these movies before there's even a script written.
But I honestly feel like you can do more with Han Solo because there is a backstory to him that they've hinted at in the original trilogy for a long time, and it could be interesting. How did he get the Falcon, and does it have anything to do with the Kessel Run? What is
why
that
is
story?
the Kessel Run measured in parsecs instead of speed, as some kind of speed vector, right?
Right, exactly. Like that's the whole thing. Like you can honestly make an interesting story that doesn't require the rest of the Star Wars universe to be there. But a Venom movie without Spider-Man is like doing a Mr. Hyde movie without Jekyll, Dr. Jekyll in it.
Yeah, it's a property that relies on another property. Maybe they will have some Spider-Man, but they keep saying, no, it's going to be completely separate from Spider-Man. It's like, what's the point? Like, I just have zero interest in, like, first of all, it's so 90s to, like, make a Venom movie. Like, who really cares about the character now, Like, in 1991, when Eric Larson was drawing that crazy Venom with the tongue, I mean, like, yeah, he was really cool, but, I mean, it's 2017. Like, the traditional Venom character hasn't really been interesting in a while. Like, the stuff Rick Remender did with turning Flash Thompson into Agent Venom, that was pretty cool, but that's not the direction they're going. So I don't know, man. This doesn't, and Sony's been hell-bent on getting this Venom movie made since, like, 06 or 07.
And it's Sony.
Yeah, also true. So, I mean, like, I don't know. It could be awesomely terrible.
Yeah, I think, though, besides from Infinity War, the movie I'm most, like, ready for is Deadpool 2. If it delivers on any of the promise from the first one, it'd be awesome.
Yeah, I can't say they screw this one up.
Yeah. Oh, and of course, Aquaman.
Well, sure.
You'll be first in line for that. I know.
No, what I'm going to be first in line for, actually, there are a lot of good, like, Ready Player One. I cannot wait to see that.
I was going to ask if any of you guys had read the book. Is the book really good?
I haven't read the book, but
I haven't read it either.
I got it on my Kindle 2 weeks ago, and I'm finishing up another series before I read that one. But I've heard everybody I've talked to that's known anything about it says it's going to be awesome. But between that, Incredibles 2, which I've been waiting a long time for, and Infinity War, I think those are the ones that I'm waiting for the most.
I think that the one that I think has a ton of potential that's going to get lost in the shuffle a little bit is New Mutants. Like, remember when we reviewed the first trailer, I kind of went crazy about it, and I think everybody else was kind of like, I don't know. And I get it. There should be a lot of skepticism on this, but they're doing such a different approach to it that I think it's either going to be awesome or terrible, and there's like no middle ground.
I actually, like, you've got New Mutants and Dark Phoenix both coming out next year, right? So two large-scale Fox X-Men movies, right? What happens once the merger becomes final?
Disney gets a bigger check, I guess.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Again, not to harp on the merger, but that's where I'm curious. Like, if New Mutants is this incredible movie and everyone wants a sequel, and then Disney's like, it's ours now. We're going to do something different with these characters. What is that? How is that going to affect people?
I don't know. Like, it's kind of uncharted territory.
Yeah.
Where a successful studio absorbs a franchise that by and large works, kind of. I mean, like, the X-Men movies have gotten better. Apocalypse wasn't great, but they're certainly in a better place than they were after, like, Wolverine Origin or something like that.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like Fantastic Four is a whole separate story, but the X-Men movies have an audience, and there are people that really enjoyed all of them. So it's like, well, we're going to reboot them again. I don't know if that's going to work. We shall see.
How many times can you reboot something in like 10 years? I mean, in one
Spider-Man
decade.
3.
I was about to say, if you're Spider-Man, you can do it 3 times and people still get watched. So we shall see. We shall see. All right. Besides movies, is there anything else coming up this year that you're really looking forward to?
I'm looking to break my record on interviews for a convention.
Oh, okay. So 27?
27. No, actually, my record is 17.
I know. So you're going to break it by 10.
I don't. First off, I don't think that's humanly possible unless I meet one of the doctors during my little sojourn. But there's a lot of research that has to be done before I do these interviews. And
research.
Hey, it's Mira Furlan. She actually went after me because I didn't know much about what she had done in the past.
Oh my God, that was funny to watch. For those who haven't listened to our great Philly Comic-Con coverage, go back and listen to that episode because he set up the interview. So I didn't really know she was on Babylon 5 and I didn't watch Babylon 5. So I was like, you can handle it. I'll just stand here. And my God, he didn't know things and she went after him and it was so funny to watch.
Yep. But I did not give up.
No, you did not.
Oh, I just smiled because she's Mira Furlan and she was right. So more research. Maybe this year is the year I'm going to get that interview with Nichelle Nichols because we got gypped during Wizard World. Hopefully this is the year that Wizard World gets their act together.
This is the year we get an interview with Stan Lee.
Sure. Whether that's in person or the seance we hold at his grave, yes.
Hey, don't you do that. Even if he's walking by and we say, hey Stan, how you doing? And he goes, oh, okay. We're going to record that and count it as an interview.
Sure. You're the one that has an in with him, so.
Yeah.
That
was 4 years ago. 5 years ago.
Yeah. But yeah, that's basically what I'm looking forward to is the conventions and that's it. Writing a book.
Yeah. No, I definitely, agree with that. Most definitely looking forward to continue podcasting with you two fine gentlemen, in 2018. This year will be hopefully bigger and better than last year. And, if you're listening to this show and you don't already do so, please head on over to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, or go to our website, superheroespeak.com, and you can find all the ways you can subscribe to the podcast there. If you aren't following us on social media, you can also do that. We're on Twitter and Instagram at superheroespeak, and then Facebook, of course, facebook.com/superheroespeak. And we're actually going to try to do a lot more audience participation going forward this year. So if you have a question for us to discuss on air, send it to us via our social media. The best way to do it is you can DM us on any of those platforms I just mentioned, or you can email, and I'll tell you right now, the best way to email us is hosts, HOSTS, at superheroespeak.com, and that goes to all of us directly. So one of us will definitely see the email. Because sometimes I miss them. Okay? I think the guys can attest to that.
Yeah, well,
Every once in a while, one of them will go, hey, did you see this? I'm like, oh, no. So, yes. And yeah, we're looking forward to hearing from you guys. We're looking for feedback and we're looking for, you can ask us what our favorite pizza topping is to what did we think of movie, whatever. So, yes. Cool. So, I think that might be a good place to put a pin in it if you guys don't have anything else you want to add?
No, except it should be a good year.
All right. Yeah. Cool. So on that note, boys and girls, as always, thank you for listening, and don't let your cape caught in the door. Have a good week.